please bring home from New Mexico, Elizabeth. But to give her a proper introduction, I'm going to bring up a dear friend of Chaucer's. You know her as the co-founder and editor-in-chief of the Santa Barbara Independent. But you may also know that she was once the editor-in-chief of the Village Voice. And also she was a senior editor at Rolling Stone, which means she has a lot of stories that she has to share. So I want to hear some stories in your memoir coming up. Please welcome Marianne Partridge.
Thank you. It's too late for me to have any memories whatsoever, but except for one, I do remember meeting Elizabeth Gilchrist. I met her at our book group. She was one of, I think, our founding members, and I was taken immediately by her insight and her decisions about the books, which were so similar to my mind, that I realized she was very gifted. So I wanted to say a few words about this book. I want you all to buy this book. It is a most wonderful book about Santa Barbara. For 40 years, The Independent has been trying to cover Santa Barbara. Elizabeth did it in 2 novellas, and they are very beautifully written, and in my mind take place in 2 different times between a decade, 90 and 2000. But the memories of the characters in that book go back much further, and they go back to a really beautiful time in Santa Barbara, and also a time where many of the people in Santa Barbara struggled, as one of the people who reviewed her book said, people who had struggled inside with an amorality and moments of dread. And this book combines both. It combines the beauty of the life, in my mind it did, and the beauty of a time that is not any more true in Montecito. It's a different time, but this period is one that she captures really with love. She wrote 2 other novels before this, both of which were wonderful. I don't know if anybody here ever read them. Your Cheating Heart and Second Chances, and I love those books, but they weren't about Santa Barbara. But the books were a promise that one day we would get this book. And I'm so grateful to Elizabeth and to my friend, Elizabeth
Oh my goodness. Not go on too long. A number of people are standing.
There's one seat.
Is Haley Johnson here? Yes. I'm not going to introduce everybody I know. She was the editor of this book, which is published by Rare Bird Press, and she's the editor and has since moved on. But it made all the difference, and thank you for coming. So,
She related to you, but fall down.
yeah. So I want to, I think, start by, I'm going to read a passage, and then I'm going to talk about the book, or about writing a little bit, and then people can ask questions if they want to. And so thank you everybody for coming. And one of the reasons for an author event like this is so that people can get to know the author. And a number of these people, of you already know the author, so it'll be sort of a mixed thing, but I want to, I've been trying to decide what to read, and I'm going to read, I finally decided just right now, a section, a passage from, can people hear me? All right, we're all right on that, I can't tell. A passage from the second novella, The Polo Club, which is set had a moment of recognition right now. Set in 2000, and the part I'm going to read, something I realized in trying to pick what to read is that it is actually both novellas are fairly plot tight, and we don't want to give away too much. So I picked something that I think is more standalone. It's someone remembering something. And what has happened is Lydia, who is I wouldn't say she's the heroine, she's the protagonist of the second book, has gone to have lunch with Hunter, lives at the Polo Club, and she hasn't seen him except he recently picked her up at a chamber music concert at the Lobero, but she hasn't seen him for many, many, many years, and he has invited her to have lunch at his condo at the Polo Club to watch the golf cart polo, which is actually a real thing. And as he described it to her, it's, morons with $3 million worth of liability insurance. They had trucked they were playing the home team, and it was the Palm Springs team had trucked their golf carts up from Palm Springs. So they had watched this, and then some other things have happened, and they're now in the condo and have had lunch, and they're listening to a Brahms cello sonata, and so I'm going to read this passage. It starts: the Brahms was passionate and yearning. Hunter went to a closet with louvered doors in the foyer and opened the locked trunk where he kept his important papers and the keepsakes of his life. There was the Playboy magazine, in which a girl he dated was Playmate of the Month. The 2 pages of the Lobero program, which just happened, were on top. The smell of old documents, old newsprint, and gun oil. And Lydia has a very, very good sense of smell. So she can smell it from a bit of a distance. Lydia imagined a well-oiled revolver wrapped in a soft cloth. When Hunter came back, he handed Lydia a 5 by 7 inch black and white matte photograph, a high-quality print with a stiff backing. It was a photograph of her in 1963 that he had taken when she was 14. She's looking into the camera, her lips parted, her eyes hazy with sex. Hunter watched Lydia looking at the photograph. She remembered the circumstances: an afternoon at the end of August, the tarry asphalt warm and soft under her bare feet. Hunter was outside that afternoon. She's walking home from the Miramar, going to the beach at the Miramar. Hunter was outside taking photographs with his 35 millimeter Leica, like a foreign correspondent. "Let me take your picture," he said. She'd always liked having her picture taken. There was something about having the exterior of her be the object of attention that was freeing. Her thoughts, her interior self, these were not the object of attention. The same objectification, she supposed, that so many women find insulting. Also, she liked how she looked. It didn't bother her at all that she wasn't beautiful. True physical beauty is a rare gift from the gods. "Let's pose you," Hunter had said, looking around. "Can you sit up there?" Many years before, a tall blue gum eucalyptus tree across the lane from the gatehouse cottage, he's renting the cottage, had blown over in a windstorm. Its bare silvery trunk rested on the steep blank of the ravine, the uprooted roots a tangle like giant grasping fingers. Lydia was wearing a beach shift over her 2-piece bathing suit. She hitched up her shift, and Hunter gave her a boost up. She straddled the tree trunk. The weathered wood was worn silky smooth. The afternoon was quiet. No sound of cars in the distance, no birds sang. Dry leaves scudded on the cracked asphalt, and there was the peppery smell of crushed nasturtium leaves. The tree trunk was too big around for her to wrap her legs around. Even though she pressed her thighs against it, she started to slide down. "Help," she said, laughing. Hunter took pictures as she made a slow descent down the steep incline of the tree trunk. Her beat shift hiked up, her crotch rubbing against the smooth wood through the thin cotton of her bathing suit as she balanced herself with both hands. She heard the clicks of Hunter's camera. He was looking through the viewfinder. The friction of the tree trunk between her legs felt good. Then it felt even better. Then it was pure pleasure. "Oh," she said softly. She opened her eyes wide and looked up at Hunter. He looked up from the camera. "That was very nice," he called down to her. She slid off the tree trunk to stand in a tangle of nasturtium vines and dead leaves. She was floating, the way it feels when you do the trick of standing in a doorway and pressing your hands hard against the door frame, so that when you stand away and put your hands at your sides, your hands rise of their own volition. She scrambled in dreamy slow motion out of the ravine as Hunter kept on snapping photos. Like a sleepwalker, she went to him and kissed him on the mouth. The kiss was like white light. Hunter did not embrace her, and after a moment he stepped back. "Let's go in the house," Lydia said. "Jesus," he said, "you're going to get me put in jail." "Not if no one knows," she said. "You're too young," he said. All summer he'd known it would be easy to seduce Lydia. She was carnal and curious, but the potential for drama and scandal was too great. He liked women his own age. It always ended badly with a well-brought-up jeune fille. He had enough to cope with. At that moment, Rosalind drove up in her black VW convertible with the top down. She was his age, and they were having an affair. Hunter had been on the short list for a grade 10 civilian contract specialist job with the Navy, and he had found out that morning that he had the job. He called Rosalind to let her know as soon as he had heard. "We could just kiss," Lydia said as Rosalind got out of the car. Hunter said, "No arguing. Off you go, Lydia." "Bye-bye," she said. "Hello, Rosalind." It was the last time Lydia saw Hunter until they met again 37 years later at the Lobero. So I want to talk about a little bit about the book, and I think one very short thing again, which will give the theme of this, which is on the copyright page. Rich People in Santa Barbara is a work of fiction. Santa Barbara is, of course, a real place, but the Santa Barbara of Montecito Peak and the Polo Club is seen through the prism of the author's memory and imagination, which is a version in most works of fiction that none of the characters are real people, and none of the episodes are real episodes, and anything that seems like it is a coincidence. And which is always sort of true unless you're really writing a roman à clef. In the first book I wrote, You're Cheatin' Heart, which I think at least one person here has recently reread, and it is. I mean, I was, something happened to me that I wanted to write a book about, and then I thought I'd put everybody else in, and then I changed their names, basically. And there's still a few people who are very cross, but what did I know? And I really, partly while I was writing it, I mean, I wanted to get it published, and it did get published, Macmillan published it, but I didn't really grasp that people were going to read it, and, you know, but they did, some of them, and so, but this book is not that. I mean, it isn't a roman à clé. It isn't that I just changed some people's names, and but unless you have write a certain kind of, I think, genre fiction, their characters are composites. They're bits and pieces of real people, and that's certainly true. And I'm coming clean, you know. There's one character who is more or less based on a real person, and he's also no longer alive. And he told me shortly before he died that he felt, I think, I told Josephine about this today, that he felt there was, I mean, he knew he was dying, and he felt that, I said, you know, what do you think happens? And he said, nothing, you know, I mean, it's emptiness, it's darkness, it's blackness, it's like you come from nothingness and you go into nothingness. But, and that the only immortality is to be remembered. And my father was there at the time, and my father was then enraged because he said, you know, and it doesn't matter if it's Hitler or Genghis Khan, it doesn't matter how you're remembered. So I figure if you're remembered as an amoral murderer, you're probably, you know, no, I mean, joking about it, but I really did think about it. It's not the things that actually did, as far as I know, but it is a real, drawn much more on a real person with liberties taken. But the other people are composite people. And the other thing is, when I say in the acknowledge or disclaimer that it's through the prism of memory and imagination, is that I made a lot of it. I mean, I wanted to write a book about Santa Barbara for a long time, and why, to me, that's a prime, there's something in geometry that you call it. You can't take it down, you can't prove it any, you know, that is where the proof starts, sort of, and that's how I felt about writing a book about Santa Barbara. I mean, I can give lots of reasons, but I wanted to do it. And I mean, it wasn't like all the time forever. I was working on this book for decades, but, you know, I made different attempts that they weren't right. And one of them had some real misadventures out in the world, which I dropped again. An early version, the agent I had was very sensible and would just say, Elizabeth, it's not ready to show around. However, well, he doesn't know what he's talking about, and they had a different agent who had recently been an editor, and that's one way people become book agents, is they're book editors, and then they know a lot of people and they become agents, and he was on his way to becoming a journalist, but in between he was I'm really getting far afield. Let's say the end result was that it was rejected, the manuscript was rejected simultaneously on the same day by 19 editors-in-chiefs. You know, but I bounced back. And this is not one of those stories, and Barnaby Conrad used to give these review, and they'd say, and then now it's published, and that proves that they were all wrong, and you read the book and think, well, I'm not sure. But this one, no, it was a different version, they were all right, and it was quite an experience, but, you know. But what made it possible, I think, because it's very much about this place. I mean, it's not, there are universals, but the place is not a universal place, it's a particular place. And I think one of the things that made it possible to write, whether it's, should be out in the world or not, but it is that I didn't live here for a while. I was born here and I went out in the world, and then I came back and lived here for 30 years. That was, Shelley was born here, my daughter also, Jim Brooke was my neighbor, many things happened. And, but then I moved to Santa Fe, which was almost 20 years ago. I know, time starts going faster and faster. But, and for a couple of years I came back, the person who did my hair was here, my doctor was here, and then gradually I didn't. And then there was a period of, it was 10 years, I think, when I wasn't here at all. And it was, I think that made it possible finally for Santa Barbara to become a place that was a story for me. And that explains a lot of it that is imagination in a way, and memory, and the way your memory changes, is that I could give an example. But it's this has been an aside because I always thought, in fact, Sue Grafton and I once had a conversation about it, and she wrote these wonderful A is for Alibi stories, and I mean, her writing gave so many people so much pleasure and continues to. I mean, I was amazed, but we knew each other, and we had because she called Santa Barbara Santa Teresa, which was partly an homage to Ross McDonald, Ken Miller, who called it Santa Teresa, but also she said, it gives you a certain freedom of the play, and I did think about calling it something else, but it isn't. I mean, anyway, that's an aside, but I'll just give one example and then read the epilogue, and we can have some questions. And an example is in the first novella, there is the Montecito Garage is a character. I mean, it's a big thing, and the owner of the Montecito Garage is part of a major character. And clearly, it's the East Valley Garage. I mean, but somehow I felt I should call it something else. And I have never and had never done more than go past it. I mean, I went past it on the school bus for years when I was in elementary school, and it was there, and I drove past it, and it was there. And so I came upon and it was how I wanted to have someone who was kind of a car guy from a certain background be involved with it. So it was in even early version, it was there. But several things happened with that. One is because I was away and remembering it, and I wasn't anti-research, but it wasn't something I'd researched. I got in my head that it was one of those stucco buildings like the old Montecito Colville store or something. And it isn't, it's a frame building. But, I'm not disguising it, that's how I remembered it. And the other thing, when I thought, well, I better look and, just see, was that, because if any of the characters are really, is the my character. I mean, he's sort of stories I heard when I was a little girl about the guys who would block off San Marcos Pass and drag race, somehow it reverberated, but pretty much. So it turns out, I believe, from internet research and conversation, it is now owned by Hunter Self. And Hunter Self was in Shelley's class at Marymount. And I was his room mother. And he was a very nice little boy, a little rascally. And I haven't had any communication with Hunter about this, but do you know Hunter Self? Well,
The name Hunter appears in the book.
well, again, I didn't, I had no idea. I had no idea. There's no, so this is what happens when you write fiction and don't, you know, but that's just a small thing that happened from memory. So that is, and then people can ask questions, but it has to do with, you know, place. It's all, for me it was a place a lot. And should I say one of your favorite line? Okay, this is apropos of nothing, but Marianne said that she liked the line in which one of the characters is saying, "We're not insular and cliquish here. We all know each other, and I'm from Pasadena." And I actually once said something like that to somebody, you know. Well, it's not, you know. But, so I want to, before we see if people have some questions, I'm, you know, just please punch the people came, thank you. Is the epilogue to it, to both of them. And this is something that, from a book that Walter Hawley wrote in 1910, and I think I got it from the Historical Society. I think they have books, or maybe.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, I mean, it was, but this is something that I think sums it up. Within nearly every house was a guitar, and when evening came and twilight darkened, from all parts of the Pueblo were heard the sounds of music and rich melodious voices. There was something distinctly characteristic in their songs, in most of which there was a minor tone of sweet plaintiveness. When the lamps were hung and the guitars and violins sounded the waltz, light hearts beat and merry peals of laughter floated through the old California homes. Lissome forms glided gracefully through the halls. Dark, velvety eyes looked words unspoken. The hours passed rapidly by, and before the last dance had been stepped, and the last soft glance given, the bells of the old mission tower had sounded the matin call. Those were halcyon days in the fairest spot in a lotus land. And you know, when he wrote that was pure nostalgia. So another way of reading this is a meditation on nostalgia. So, thank you for
Very
coming. And
nice.
if anybody has